Hello there guys, and welcome back to the channel. So this is going to be quite a brief video about my kind of initial hands-on impressions with Titania. First we're gonna go through a damage comparison with three different other science champions, Spider-Man 2099, because I think that's kind of like a good baseline for another champion that doesn't get buffs. Then for another Red Hulk and Spider-Ham, and we're gonna see how all four of these champions are going to do against this Captain America that is in Act 4.46. It's in that Maestro quest. Straight up the middle, there are basically no nodes, no class advantages, kind of like straightforward damage comparison as we can. Because I'll be honest, the deep dive did leave me somewhat worried about Titania and her damage, especially because even when she had a ton of buffs going for her, the numbers didn't seem quite that impressive. But that is exactly the reason why nobody should make some sort of final judgment calls based on numbers we see in deep dive, because they're always wildly misleading. And additionally, since her stats got added to Aunt May, I also saw that she has a very low crit rate. We can see that she only has 226 points, and that means that she has worse crit rate than the Thing and Overseer and Red Hulk and Grey Hulk, and so forth. So that is not good. That is not good at all. So 226 points would put her as like what, 12th worst crit rate in the game out at her base, which is definitely kind of like bad news here. I do still, however, believe that her success or failure in this contest is largely going to depend on two major factors. Number one is how much utility we will as players be able to squeeze out of her haymakers, so her indestructible, unstoppable, unblockable. And most importantly, whether her damage is going to be satisfactory for her to be considered as an option for more competitive content. For instance, we already have a champion that on paper should be able to cover a lot of bases with immunity to buffs, with access to slows, with access to trauma. But in reality, he just doesn't hit hard enough on his base, and his level 2 damage is impossible to maintain, and therefore nobody really uses Red Guardian. Even though if he had more damage, for instance, I can guarantee you he would be an amazing Battleground champion and really good Alliance War option. And that is kind of like the difference. Just that he doesn't hit quite hard enough on his base, and with level 2 it's very hard to keep up. So let's see how Titania does without any more. And again, I might not be playing her perfectly in each fight. I'm still obviously learning. Very new with Titania. So there is that. So I like to go for a full combo here, and then I dash in, I eat a couple of hits to get some more power, I suppose. And with that also, we are trying to do as many light hits as possible in order to inflict as many debuffs on Captain America as possible. That is going to give us more and more Furies. And then I'm just gonna go straight up for level 2 that I chained from heavy attack in order to get that smorgasbord effect as well. And we can see that with basically that one level 2 and level 1, this fight is over. And she actually did it. Well, I didn't have a baseline at this point, but it seemed fast. It seemed good. Basically dropped to level 2, placed physical vulnerability, few more hits to level 1, and jabs done. So let's see how few other champions do here. We're going to compare Titania's damage in this fight and duration in this fight with Red Hulk, Spider-Ham, and Spider-Man 2099. Obviously, because, well, there's a reason why I picked these champions, kind of, because Red Hulk is like a good baseline of a relatively decent high damage dealing science champion. That's not the craziest damage dealing, but that's the super reliable damage that is not reliant on RNG or specific setups. That's extremely easy to access. And obviously, you know, Red Hulk does kind of shine with Liquid Courage Double Edge, but nonetheless, let's see how Red Hulk does. And at this point, I realized that Red Hulk is going to be slower than Titania is. And that already, well, here I do make a mistake and I eat that level 2, but it's okay. I was recording these fights while doing some other errands, so don't judge me for that gameplay. Still didn't take as much extra time because of it. And he finished in, sorry, 1 second. He finished this in Ta-da! 48 seconds, 52 hits. So there is a noticeable difference in favor of Titania. 36 seconds, 41 hits. So she does have better damage output objectively in an average fight than Red Hulk does by herself without any synergies and stuff like that. Now we're going to go up against Spider-Ham, and the cool thing about Spider-Ham is obviously that he actually does have quite a high damage output for a Science Champion. And the best thing about it is obviously that it's able to bypass a ton of damage mitigation abilities and things like that, because a lot of that damage does come from power stings. It is slightly RNG related, but at this point we have made it to level 2. We have 6 Porker Poppers and he drops a level 2. Now at this point I just basically need to push Cap past the bar of power, and that already at this point is overkill. And it was similar in terms of power usage, but obviously it ended up being faster by like 6 or 7 seconds here. So Spider-Ham does outspeed her somewhat, which I 100% expected, because I do think Battlegrounds have opened the eyes of Spider-Ham's damage potential in relatively short fights. But this was the most important damage comparison, because Spider-Man 2099 is a perfect champion for a ton of hard matchups in Alliance War and in Battlegrounds. The problem with Spider-Man 2099 in Battlegrounds is that he's not quite fast enough, especially considering champions that he takes on. Like, if my opponent has Spider-Man 2099, I will not be afraid to put my Man-Thing down on defense, knowing that Spider-Man 2099 counters Man-Thing correctly and perfectly, and he can likely finish that fight with like 98%, and, you know, he's gonna have a very easy fight. Why I'm not worried about it? Because I know that Spider-Man 2099 overall takes relatively decent amount of time, and I can typically outpace it if I have a decent matchup. And I think that is going to be one of the critical important things here. You can see the Spider-Man 2099 definitely isn't a damage log. It did 45 seconds. That's not bad at all. It's very respectable. So, but 45 seconds on this kind of like a short fight. And actually, if you pay attention to health bars, then this is something similar to 200% or 250% Battlegrounds meta. 45, and Titania was 9 seconds quicker, which is actually a very significant margin. So because of this, and obviously this is still very early, and I might be wrong, and there is still plenty of other things to keep in mind. But because of this thing specifically, I realize that Titania likely does have higher damage output in these medium level fights, or short to medium level fights, than Spider-Man 2099 does. And that is going to make her the highest damage output champion that's immune to buffs, and therefore by definition will perfectly counter a crap ton of Mystic champions. And that might be enough to make her quite a desirable champion, because she's going to be great counter to Man-Thing, for instance. She's going to be great counter to Mojo. She's going to be great counter to a ton of different champions. Even something like Ebony Maw, for instance, because she's going to be able to drop that heavy and consequences be damned. She's never going to get a degeneration from Mojo, from Ebony Maw's level 1s, because she can't get a Fury buff. And then you can quite easily knock Ebony Maw down thanks to your smorgasbord. And yeah, the more I think about it, the more she's kind of growing on me. Because one of the biggest concerns that I did have about her was the damage output. Now, I'm concerned significantly less. Now, these other fights in background, it's like nothing kind of too much to do. I just recorded, you know, I was just messing around with Titania here and there, and I don't have anything particular to showcase, other than the fact that in shorter fights, you basically want to just get to your level 2, get that physical vulnerability on the opponent, and that's it. You know, just do level 2 and then level 2 again. And in longer fights, you do want level 2, level 1, level 2, level 3. That's a long fight rotation. Or in medium fights, perhaps level 1, level 2, maybe. But most of the time, it's just going to be level 2 spam. And that's another thing that I really like. with Titania. Number one, she is increasing her damage output even without special attacks, and you don't necessarily have to get a special attack to start doing any damage because she's consistently going to be gaining Furies. And number two, she doesn't have any elaborate rotation. You can really kind of play it by feel, and you'll be fine. Yes, level 3 does have the high damage output, but again, that level 3 thing is just not going to happen in the majority of the cases. So, let me know what do you guys think about Titania so far, but after having had the chance to play with her myself, my impression of her definitely so far has improved compared to what I thought about her after watching the deep dive. So, yeah, let me know where do you stand at the moment on Titania. See you guys soon. Hello there guys, and welcome back to the channel. So we have all the information about the next